when you have 5 immunity agreements and no prosecution, when you are allowing witnesses who happen to be lawyers, who happen to be targets, to sit in on an interview. That is not the FBI that I used to work with.
I hope someday when the political craze is over, you will look back again on this, because this is the FBI you know and love. This was done by pros in the right way.
Well, our first guest tonight says evidence of a cover-up involving Mills and others is, as he puts it, compelling. Joining us tonight, Congressman Jim Jordan, member of the Judiciary Committee. He also serves on the Oversight Committee. He is the chairman of the Conservative Freedom Caucus. Congressman, great to see you, and thanks for being here.
Good to be with you, Lou.
I have to say, I'm stunned hearing Comey say this was done the way you would want it done when you all made it pretty clear you didn't think it was quite right. What's your reaction to what he said, and what the conclusion we should all take from this hearing?
There are two standards. Everyone in America knows it. There's one standard for you and me, and there's a different standard for the politically connected. Mr. Comey, in his opening statement, Lou, said that this was an unusual case. That's the understatement of the year. Of course it was an unusual case. The husband of the subject of the investigation meets with the Attorney General 3 days before you interviewed the subject of the investigation. 9 people got to sit in with Hillary Clinton in her interview by the FBI. One of those people was Cheryl Mills, who's also a subject of the investigation. She got to sit in. A lady who got immunity deal as well, a partial immunity deal. 5 people get immunities. 5 people get immunities and no one gets prosecuted. 3 of those people who got immunities came in front of Congress and took the 5th. And one of those 3 didn't even come in front of Congress the second time, even though he was subpoenaed. He just said, I'm not even going to show up. And the clincher, the Attorney General announces before the recommendations are there that she's going to follow Director Comey's recommendation, and she doesn't even know what they are. So this is the most unusual thing we've ever seen, and of course people are upset about it, because it's supposed to be equal treatment under the law for everybody. You don't get something special just because you're the nominee of a major party, just because you're former First Lady, just because you're Secretary of State, just because you're a former Senator. That's not how it's supposed to work in this country, and everyone understands that.
We've come a long way. Most people, Congressman, and I think you've got to hear it every time you go home, most people think now Washington, D.C. is a cesspool. It's a joke. And the people in it are corrupt. I mean all people. There is some reservation, and you and I, most assuredly, I have the greatest respect for you. But we're watching the Congress of the United States talking to a director of the FBI who has flaunted his absolute refusal to do his duty. A person, one doesn't require a law degree to see what has happened here, and to see the targets of an investigation being granted immunity. I mean, Cheryl Mills is the #2 target if there is to be an investigation and prosecution, and he gives away immunity? Are you kidding me?
Lou, that list I just gave actually gets worse, because one of those individuals who got immunity and then took the 5th in front of Congress, Paul Combetta, was actually caught last week going online and trying to delete his Reddit post where he talked about a very VIP person who didn't want her email address exposed, right? That person's obviously Secretary. In fact, Director Comey admitted today that Reddit post from back in 2014, that VIP that he was referring to was Secretary Clinton, and they wanted to make sure this email address didn't go public. The they in that Reddit post, I'm convinced, is Cheryl Mills. And yet he still says, we're not going to reopen this investigation. We did a great job and the case is closed. And this is why, in my judgment, so many people are rallying to Donald Trump. They understand he is fed up with this double standard as well. He represents them, and that's one of the reasons I think he's getting such good support around the country.
You know, my answer to that is I certainly hope so. But Congress, and particularly the leadership of the House and the leadership of the Senate, haven't made it easy for him. And I will tell you quite straightforwardly, when you guys started talking about these investigations, I didn't think they would produce much. The FBI, I never for a moment bought the stuff about Comey's integrity. He's only flaunted one president, and that was a Republican president. And this is a man who did not have any empirical basis for all of this nonsense about what a man of integrity he was, and he has just shown himself to be as corrupt as he can be, has he not?
Well, remember also what the director of the FBI did. This was also unprecedented. He has this big press conference where he goes through all the things that were wrong, that Secretary Clinton did wrong, the classified information, how many, all the things. He goes through all that, and then at the end he says, but we're not going to prosecute. And then since that date in July, we learn all this that we have learned about who got the immunity agreements, 5 different people, what they involved. We learn about this Reddit post and all the different things that have happened. So he did something that I've never seen before. Holds a big press conference to announce we're not going to prosecute. Yeah. I don't know that I've ever seen that. That was unusual as well. So everything has been crazy.
As Director Comey says, this is an unusual case. The director of the obvious, I think we could call him. It was not so obvious to say he's a flawed and failed man. It sounded like he was in a group therapy session rather than talking with the people who represent the people, rather than leading an investigation. I mean, this is just a little too much schmaltz for me. I cannot understand, and I don't believe many of the American people can believe or understand, that we've got a director of the FBI who, presented with these facts, has basically said, go to hell. I'm going to give immunity to who I want. It doesn't have to make sense to those who have oversight of the director of the FBI and his agency, who, I mean, you're supposed to be a co-equal branch of government, and right now we see you basically, you know, you've been run over.
Well, look, there are all kinds of great people who have worked and still work and do work for the FBI, and we appreciate the service they provide.
I'm talking about at the top, because there can't be that many people at the top. No one has resigned. No one has said this is a bunch of crap and said, I can't stomach it anymore. So there are too many people who can stomach it from my, well, from my personal satisfaction.
Look, I'm frustrated as well, and I think so many people are, Lou. One of the other things that so frustrated me was when it was brought to Director Comey's attention that Secretary Clinton made false statements in front of the Benghazi Committee last October, statements that turned out to inaccurate statements as evidenced by what he discovered in his investigation, and yet he said they didn't even look at that. Now think about it. The subject of your investigation, Secretary Clinton, is testifying in front of Congress, being asked about the very subject matter, her email situation that you're looking into, and you don't look at the transcript from that hearing? What kind of investigation is that? So that's also all these things together. When you make the list, you're like, I've never seen anything like this. And this from, as Mr. Gowdy pointed out today in the hearing, from an agency that had so much respect. That's what's troubling to so many Americans.